information, and so on. So there is no changes to your database. So we call this schema as a query state operation schema. So when you go for a query state operation schema, you need to use the Z notation to indicate your operation schema does not have any changes. Okay. Another one is actually what we call as change state operation schema. Okay, where you see the word change means the schema or the database will have a little bit of changes. It doesn't matter how many changes, at least one change inside your database. So you have to indicate using delta. So when people see the symbol delta, they will know that this schema will have an update inside your database. Okay, so that is actually what you actually learn up to your Z schema. Okay, in your operation schema, you are going to do what we call as post and precondition, where you are going to do, or you are going to involve the variable with the decoration. Okay, for example, input variable, output variable, or update variable. So you are going to use inside your operation schema to indicate whether pre or post condition. Okay, so of course pre will be before, post will be after, but these variable that involve input, output, or operation changes will actually be used normally in the operation schema. Okay, so in the operation schema, you can use a lot of operation, less than, greater than, a subset, not a member of, and so on inside your pre and post condition. Okay, so that is actually what we have actually done last week in our lecture. So this week, we will start with exercise first. Then after that, I will proceed with another explanation, what is actually structure and so on. Okay, so let's look at the exercise here. For example, when we want to start our Z schema, okay, so of course, you have to do previously what you have learned. You have to do basic type, free type, axiomatic definition, if any. And then after that will be state space schema, initial state, and operation schema, where operation schema can be whether query state or change state. Okay, so this is actually up to there. This is actually the general step-by-step Z schema that you have to know, you have to remember. Okay, so let's look at the exercise here, where this is a very simple exercise. For example, we are going to have a simple system called counter, where it's just to calculate. Counter system here is just to calculate the customer enter a shop and also the customer exit the shop, means left the shop. Okay, just a very simple calculation plus one customer. We are not going to keep the customer information inside the counter system. So in this simple question, we are going to have two variables called total and maximum. Okay, so when you have that, okay, because we are not going to use any basic type, any axiomatic definition, and any free type, we are just going to do built-in type. So we are not going to do basic type, free type declaration, and so on. Okay, so assuming that after you have done, you have looked into data basic type, free type, and axiomatic definition, nothing to be included for this system. So you proceed with the state space schema. Okay, you proceed with the state space schema. So for state space schema here, we are given, of course, the name will be counter in this question. Okay, so state schema name will be counter. We are going to have total and maximum as our variable. So in this case, we are going to use built-in where the type is n. Okay, where the type is n. So our condition here, our precondition here is total less or equals to maximum. So when you do your state space schema here, you are telling that there will be two variables involved here, total and maximum, where these two variables are actually going to be used to communicate with your database data. Okay, total and maximum will be used or will be stored inside your database data. So you are going to use these two variables to communicate with your database data. So whatever the data inside your total and maximum will be integer. Okay, will be integer, whole number, n. Okay, so we have the condition here. So this is the declaration, and then the predicate part is a general constraint or condition that you have to include inside your state space. So our constraint here for this question is only to say that the total number that we are going to have here cannot exceed the maximum value. Okay, cannot exceed the maximum value. So in this case, okay, in this case, we have only one type, no connection and so on. So after that, okay, after your state space schema, you are going to do what we call as initial state. So initial state, because our declaration here is n, only n. So we can do 0, 1, 2, whatever the number that you want to initialize. So how to start with initial state? Okay, so you same thing, you are going to draw the schema diagram here, and then you put the name of the state. Okay, in this case will be init counter. Okay, the name of the initial state will be init counter. Then in the declaration part, because initial state is used to initialize your variable from the state space schema. Okay, initialize the variable from the state space schema. So in your declaration part here, okay, in your declaration part here, you put your state space name. Okay, so your state space name just now is counter. So inside your initial state, in the declaration part here, you put counter also. Okay, so you have two variables just now. Okay, you refer back to here. You have two variables, total and maximum. Then you list down these two variables here. So if it is only one type only, so n also, then you can put number. For this case, because n only, then we are going to put the number. Okay, so let's say I want to initialize total as 0 and maximum is 100. So I just put the value because it's n only. You can use total equals to 0 and maximum equals to 100. It's similar like you write program initialize the data. So in this case also, you can initialize the data to integer. So what is the value? Then you have to know what is the initialized value that you want to do for your variable. For this question, we are going to initialize the value using total as 0 and then maximum as 100. Okay. So after that, after your initial state, then the next step is to do the operation schema. Okay. Operation schema just now can be two types, either query state or change state schema. Okay, either query state or change state schema. So we are going to proceed after the initial state will be with the operation schema. Okay, so assuming that I want to know what is the total customer in the shop. Okay, of course we just started. So most probably the answer will be 0. But if let's say you have proceed with whatever operations inside your system, then there are a few customers inside the shop. Then you want to show how many customers in the shop. Then this is only to display the result. Okay, display the output. Then we call this as query state schema. Okay, query state schema. So for this case, for example, the query for this one we call as query total. Okay, that will produce the current value of total. It means that total customer inside the shop. Okay, so because this is query system, okay, so you are going to get the information from the database. Okay, the data is actually from the database, and then you are not going to update the database data, so you have to tell that, because this is operation schema, it's similar like your operation or your function that you are doing. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to tell people that there will be no update in your database data. Okay, so if there is no update in your database data, you have to show using Z notation. Okay, using Z notation. So for example, I want to tell that by using Z notation here, okay, and then counter, I am telling people that my database data from counter, because counter is our state space schema, my database data from counter here will not have any changes. Okay, any update, whatever, when you use Z notation. So this line here indicates that there is no changes in our database data for counter. Okay, so because, okay, after you have done that, then you have to ask yourself, you are going to show output on the screen, for example. You are going to produce or display the result of what you actually inquire there. Okay, so meaning that you have to show output. Okay, if let's say you check or you query something, so of course you want to show the result. Okay, so when you want to show the result, this is where you have to declare what we call as output variable. Okay, you have to declare the output variable. So in this case, for example, I create an identifier, output identifier or output variable with exclamation mark here. And then the result that I want to produce is an integer value. So I just declare as an integer here. So what it means here, what is this statement means actually, we are telling people that we are going to have an output variable, okay, that will produce an integer data. Okay, we are going to have an output variable that will produce an integer result. Okay, that will produce an integer result. So that is the meaning of this statement. So this statement here, inside query total here, this is a local variable. Similar like you write program, you have a global variable and local variable for your functions and so on. Similar case for your Z schema. So this variable here, it is local variable, something like local variable. So you can use whatever that you want to do. This output exclamation mark here, output variable here, only can be used inside query total. If you want to use in another schema, you have to declare the same variable name, doesn't matter, or different variable name inside that schema. Okay, because this is local. Okay, so after you declare all your variables that you want, so in this case, we are going to have one variable only. Okay, one variable only. So I want to produce the total. How to produce? You put the variable, output variable equals to total. So total here is actually variable that will communicate with your database just now. So total will actually check in your database what is the value that you have for the total. Then it will actually produce on the screen the result of what you get from the total just now. Okay, so that is actually what we call as query schema. Okay, one thing that I want to inform you that, okay, in this case, we are only involved output variable. Okay, so you just need to do something like this only, produce the output only. But if there are cases where, okay, there are cases where you have output variable and also additional input variable as your declaration here. Assuming you have input variable also added in your variable declaration here, then below here, there will be another few lines that you have to add. We will call as remain unchanged variable. So later we will see about that. Okay, so if there is at least one input variable involved here, one input variable involved here, Okay, then below here you have to add additional variables we call as remain unchanged variable setup. So this one I will show you on how to proceed with that later. Okay, so for this question, for query state schema here, okay, so if it is a query, no update into your database or whatever, you don't have any changes in your database, then you have to indicate using Z notation. Okay, Z notation. Okay, so the next question, for example, okay, I want to, there's one customer enter the shop. Okay, so when a customer enter a shop, then you have to indicate the value +1 value, plus, and so on. How many customers enter the shop? And then also, if let's say a customer actually exit the shop, okay, go to another shop, for example, and then left the shop, then you have to remove the number of total customers in the shop. Okay, so when you have to do this, so there will be an update to your database data. Okay, so there will be an update to your database data. When you have this all the time, there will be an update inside your database data. So when there is an update, okay, at least one variable is updated. You don't have to update all. Huh? So at least one variable is updated. Okay, so you have to tell other people that, okay, there is an update in your database data. So how to tell people that there is an update in your database data? You have to use delta symbol. Okay, you have to use delta symbol. So when you use delta symbol here, okay, so what you are telling actually to other people, you are telling that your database data, okay, either total or maximum just now, will have an update. So we don't care whether it is all updated or only one updated, but at least one variable that deals with database will have an update. Okay, at least one. Okay, at least one. So in this case, let's say I want to add count and remove count. Okay, so add count means the customer enter the shop. Means that my calculation, let's say I have 20 customers in the shop now, then become 21 already. Okay, so and then if let's say another customer enter the shop, so from 21 becomes 22. So it will increase the number. But if let's say one customer left the shop, okay, then from 22 just now, okay, I have to minus the number, make it 21. Okay, so that is actually what we are going to do for this question, where minus or plus one. So either you add count or remove count. Okay. So if let's say I want to add customer into the shop, okay. So when you want to add the customer into the shop, then you have to ask yourself, is there any checking that you have to do? Okay, any checking that you have to do before you allow the customer to enter the shop. Okay, is there any how to say any checking, any precondition that you have to do here? Okay, because remember just now maximum is only 100. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, can you allow, okay, if let's say now we have 100 customer in a shop, then can you allow another customer to enter the shop? So this is what we call as precondition. Okay, checking. So this is what we call as precondition. Okay, so in order for you to allow the customer to enter the shop, okay, then the total number of customers in the shop cannot exceed the maximum already. Okay, if equal to maximum means already full. Okay, so means that the total number of customer in the shop, if let's say just now we have maximum 100, total now, if you want to allow one more customer to enter, so total now must be at least not at least, maximum for now must be 99. Okay, so if let's say 100 means already full. So that's why when you do your precondition, then you have to ask yourself how to do that. So in this case, okay, so we put total less than maximum. So if let's say now total is 99, it is still less than maximum 100. Okay, still less than maximum 100 just now. Okay, yeah. So from here, okay, so if this, another thing that just want to remind you, when you do whatever the precondition here, the result must always be true. Okay, must always be true. Okay, so in this case, if you want to allow the customer to enter the shop, okay, you want to add that customer into the shop total, then the shop cannot be full yet. Okay, the shop cannot be full yet. So that's why, okay, you do this one. So the result here must be true. Okay, then you do another lah. Then you do another. Is there any more precondition that you have to do or not? Okay, any more precondition that you have to do or not? If not, then you do additional. So how to do the addition here? Okay, just now we have n. N you can use plus, minus, whatever. You don't have to worry about that. So if n built in n, so you can use plus. Okay, so how to do the addition? Okay, total here. Okay, total here means the old data from your database. Let's say I have 20 in my database. Okay, my original data in the database total there is 20 customers. Then I plus 1, then the total become 21. Okay, so this 21 you have to store somewhere. Of course, you are going to store in your database, but you need a variable, a variable to store that data. Okay, if let's say programming also, sum equals to num1 plus num2, for example. So num1 is your data, num2 is another data, but you plus 2, then you store inside sum. So same case like this, so you have to store that data in another variable. So that variable will be the same as total here because we are talking about database data. So that variable must be the same as total, but you just add prime symbol. So when you add the prime symbol, what it means actually, this is the updated total data. Okay, this is the updated total data. So just now, let's say we have 20 plus 1. So the updated data in our database will be 21. Okay, will be 21. So that is actually how you actually put the data into your database. So the variable that you have to use here will be the same as your variable that communicate with your database. The only difference is you have to put prime or apostrophe. Okay, so prime here means that the data is actually the updated data. Okay, so now your data is actually 21. Okay, let's say 20 plus 1. So the actual data will be 21. Now the new data will be 21. Okay, and then this is what it says as remain unchanged variable. Okay, remain unchanged variable means that the original data and the new data are the same. So we have maximum just now as 100. So the latest data for maximum also remain as 100 also. Okay, so if you want to indicate remain unchanged, okay, so how to do it? You just put the prime variable on the left side of equal. Then this is to indicate the old variable. Okay, so this is the new variable with update prime. And then this is the new variable. Okay, so this is how you put the remain unchanged variable. Okay, when you do your prime variable here, there must only appear ones only. Okay, you cannot have total prime equal to total plus 1. Another line, you put total prime equals to total plus 1, for example. Cannot. Okay, so you cannot have two prime variable involved in your operation schema. Only once. Okay, only one time only the prime variable involved in your predicate part of your operation schema. Okay, so one time only. So you have total prime here, one time only. You cannot have another line. You press enter, then you put another line. Total prime equals to total plus 1. Cannot. Because you have total prime equals to total plus 1 and another total prime equals to total plus 1. Cannot. Okay, so you must have only one total prime only in your operation schema. Okay, so this is for add counter. Okay, this is for add counter. Same thing for the remove counter here, where, sorry, should be add counter, because here add counter, here should be the name, should be a remove counter. Okay, so maybe you update your notes, add counter and remove counter. Okay, so let's say I have remove counter. I want to remove where the customer left the shop. Okay, so when you do this, okay, you can have, same thing, because there is an update, okay, there is an update to your database data. Okay, there is an update to your database data. So we still use delta symbol. Okay, we still use delta symbol. And then after that, okay, so similar, here you do plus, here you do minus. Okay, so plus minus we still can use because our variable declaration for total and maximum is actually built-in n. Okay, and data type. Okay, so we still can use plus minus. So this is variable remain unchanged. Okay, variable remain unchanged. So now, so that one is a very simple, how to say, a very simple, a very simple scenario where you just do plus minus only. Okay, where you do plus minus only. But now, assuming that, okay, assuming that you are going to change your counter just now, okay, you're entering a shop and so on, where you are going to keep the customer information in the database. For example, maybe customer name, for example, or maybe customer ID, doesn't matter which one, or customer handphone. Okay, you want to keep the customer information inside your system. Let's say you want to keep the customer handphone for example, inside your system. Okay, so what happened is, okay, if you want to keep the customer information now, then you cannot have like n only. N is number 1 to 3. But now, if you want to keep the customer information, let's say handphone number, for example, then you have to know whether it is basic type or free type already. Okay, whether it is basic type or free type already. Okay, so you have to know whether those are the type. Okay, or is it n? Okay, so in this case, assuming that we were given one basic type called customer. Okay, one basic type called customer that we are going to use for our system later. Okay, and then in this question also, we are going to change our counter state space just now to become count customer state space name. Okay, because now I want to keep the customer information inside my database. Okay, I want to keep the customer information inside my database. Okay, so after we are going to have one basic type called customer, free type, no free type, axiomatic also, no axiomatic definition. Okay, so now after everything, then you do with your state space schema. Okay, your state space schema. So count customer is your state space schema name.